A Stoic philosopher once turned pale during a storm at sea. The Roman writer Aulus Gellius was on the ship. It was filling with water. Gellius watched the philosopher to see what courage looked like when fear stopped being theoretical. The Stoic was frightened. His face lost its color. When the sea had calmed, the philosopher showed Gellius a passage from a lost fifth book of Epictetus's discourses. The first impression, the shock reaching body and mind, is not simply chosen. What remains open is assent, whether we let it govern our judgment. The storm reached him. Stoicism began with what happened next, and that scene exposes something a popular version of Stoicism gets badly wrong. Feel nothing. Never admit pain. Turn every wound into fuel. Stay unbothered. The aesthetic is Roman. The message often is not. A useful Stoic claim that you have some power over how you respond gets quietly replaced by a different one. Strong people should barely feel a response at all. Those are not the same thing. One is self-command. The other can become emotional disappearance. So the question is not whether Stoicism is good or bad. It is whether the version you are practicing helps you meet reality more honestly, or gives you a respectable way to hide from part of it. Gellius's story matters because it shows where the Stoics located responsibility. In simplified form, first comes the impression, then comes assent, the mind's endorsement of what the impression appears to say. Then comes impulse and action. Seneca makes a related distinction when he writes about anger. The first movement can be involuntary, shock, bodily tension, the beginning of an emotional reaction. Anger, in the fullest Stoic sense, involves judgment, that an injury has occurred and retaliation should follow. The discipline enters between reaction and command. Not, I must not feel this, but I do not have to obey everything I feel. Something entered me, and I still decide what authority it will have. That is demanding, but it is not numbness. Classical Stoicism was more emotionally complicated than its modern caricature. Ancient summaries describe three principal good emotional states in the Stoic ideal: rational joy, caution, and rational wishing. Under them sit states, including goodwill, friendliness, respect, and affection. The aim was radical, freedom from destructive passions, bound up with false judgment. But it was not simple emotional blankness, and Stoicism was social. Marcus Aurelius reminds himself that human beings are made for cooperation. His meditations repeatedly return to the work of a human being: anger, duty, difficult people, and beginning again after failure. That does not prove exactly what Marcus felt, but people do not usually repeat instructions they have permanently mastered. His private notes suggest that steadiness was a practice, not a permanent facial expression. Even this fuller philosophy has limits. The Stoics made judgment central to emotional disturbance. Modern emotion research also shows that changing how we interpret a situation can change our emotional response. But fear learning does not work like deleting a file. Learning that a situation is now safe may inhibit an older fear association without erasing it. Research finds impaired fear extinction especially relevant to post-traumatic stress disorder. The danger may be gone. The reaction may still arrive. The body can learn danger faster than a sentence can undo it. That matters because a philosophy of responsibility can become a language of blame when applied carelessly. And there is a second limit. Sometimes the problem is not merely your response to the environment. Sometimes the environment is wrong. Acceptance becomes dangerous when it is used to make avoidable harm feel inevitable. A harmful workplace, relationship, or institution may benefit enormously from a person who has learned to ask only, how do I control my response? Sometimes the better question is, what needs to change? This is where modern psychology gives us a useful distinction. Emotion regulation is the broad process of influencing which emotions we have, when we have them, and how we experience or express them. Expressive suppression is narrower, inhibiting the outward signs of an emotional response after that response has begun. For this film, avoidance means behavior becoming organized around not facing the feeling, memory, conversation, or situation. From the outside, all three can look calm. Same face, different inner process. Research does not show that suppression is always harmful. Context and culture matter. Sometimes delaying expression is wise or necessary, but across studies, greater habitual suppression is associated, on average, with poorer social well-being and relationship outcomes. The problem is not temporary restraint. It is turning restraint into an identity. The lesson is not express everything. It is, do not confuse hiding an emotion with having dealt with it. Imagine a man after a relationship ends. He tells everyone he is fine. He trains harder, works later, deletes the photographs, stops answering certain calls. He is productive, disciplined, and apparently untouched. For a while, people admire him for it, but ask a different question. Is he choosing how to carry pain, or arranging his life so he never has to admit the pain exists? Now, imagine the same man doing something less impressive from the outside. He admits that the loss hurt. He does not send the destructive message. He keeps going to work. He still trains. But he tells one person the truth. He lets grief exist without turning grief into a commander. And slowly, he decides what the experience requires from him. Both versions feel pain. One is learning to carry it honestly. The other is building an identity around never admitting it exists. The performance of strength becomes a life nobody can enter. So what is your version of strength doing to you? Can you name what you feel without immediately calling it weakness? Can you ask for help without believing you have failed? Can you admit that somebody hurt you without giving them control over what you do next? Does your discipline make you more honest, more capable of boundaries, and more available to the people who matter? Or has it made you impressive from a distance and impossible to reach? Healthy self-command increases contact with reality. Avoidance reduces it. Calm is not always evidence of peace. Sometimes it is fear that has learned how to stand perfectly still. The opposite of being ruled by emotion is not becoming emotionally absent. It is being able to feel what is present and still choose your action. Go back to the ship. The philosopher turned pale. His body reacted, and none of that in the Stoic account meant that philosophy had failed. The storm reached him. That is the point. Life will reach you. Loss will reach you. Fear will reach you. Other people will reach you. The work begins after contact. Real strength is not the absence of pain. It is being able to look at what hurts without lying about it and still choose what you do next. When Stoicism helps us do that, it remains extraordinarily useful. When it becomes a mask that lets us avoid admitting we are hurt, it stops being self-command. It becomes avoidance dressed as strength. This is pioneers of human behavior, the ideas behind the names and the parts the internet leaves out.